Good afternoon. This is a program from the New York State Bar Association's Attorney Wellbeing Program. We are here today with guest speakers Stephanie and Carlos from True Progress Lab for a webinar entitled Build a Heightened Sense of Inner Control in High Stress Environments. With that, I'd love to pass it over to our guests here. I will pass it over to you, Carlos. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming to this Friday. I know it's summertime, so it can be difficult. Thanks for joining this session. We are Carlos and Stephanie, and we're co-founders of True Progress Lab. And we're here to share some valuable tools and insights that's going to help you develop this, what we call heightened sense of inner control, so you can ultimately lower your stress levels and increase your performance. That's what we want, right? Stephanie?
Thank you. Hi, everyone, and good afternoon. First of all, we want to thank Jennifer for allowing us to be here today and putting this together. We're excited to spend some time with you this afternoon. If you have any questions throughout our session, please use the chat box, but we will be opening it up for questions at the end as well. Or if you feel free, if we run out of time, to email us. We will be dropping our email in the chat box here in Zoom. It's hello@trueprogresslab.com.
Thank you, Stephanie. So a little bit about us. I'm an attorney myself. I'm also an Army JAG Reserve officer in the Army JAG Corps Reserve, and I'm a senior trial defense counsel in that capacity in the Army Reserves, where I defend soldiers in different legal matters. And I'm also an Army resilience trainer, where I train soldiers and leaders on much of the things that we're going to cover today, specifically building that resilience and calm in the workplace. And Stephanie?
Yes, so I'm the other co-founder of True Progress Lab, and I'm an executive coach and global HR professional. I've worked with many different high performers in the Washington, D.C. area, but also globally. And I've spent the last 12 years helping very busy people in high demand environments really tap into their leadership potential using emotional intelligence and personality tools. I am Myers-Briggs Type Indicator certified, so that has influenced a lot of our TPL True Progress Lab program as well.
Thank you, Stephanie. So we started our careers in around 2011. We worked at nonprofits, we worked in the federal government, active duty in the military, lots of high stress, high judgment, competing demands, constant pressure, right? We were thriving, or at least we thought we were thriving. But behind that business attire, behind that confident facade, was this harsh reality of anxiety and overwhelm from all of the competing demands that the job required. And we realized it affected our judgment, our decision-making capabilities, our ability to be creative and think on our feet, and just show up as our best selves. And so we became reactive, communication started breaking down, irritable, not really going after opportunities that we knew we were qualified for. And it kept us in this survival mode. And guess what? We realized we weren't alone. Everyone around us, my colleagues, lawyers, even military leaders, they were also having trouble embodying this sense of inner control, this ability to be calm and think clearly and show up confidently. And so something needed to change. So we began this journey of personal experimentation and research, diving into neuroscience, psychology, ancient philosophy, endurance running, combat sports, trying to understand how people at the top of their game remained calm despite the chaos around them. And so we started teaching what we learned and applied in our own lives to other people we were helping. And eventually we co-founded True Progress Lab to help others like ourselves build that increased calm and increased resilience, especially in times of uncertainty, in times of change, in times of adversity. And so since then, we've had the chance to work with professionals from different backgrounds and different organizations, places like academic institutions, law firms, even in the US Army. And Stephanie is gonna talk more about some common stressors that people tend to have. Stephanie?
Thanks. Yes. So, as Carlos said, we've worked with all sorts of different people, attorneys, military leaders, and that we've worked side along them. And really, what happens most of the time, and you probably will recognize some of this, is that too much happens too fast, too often, and you're just struggling with this relentless demand, right? With barely enough time to think. There's a lot going on, tension in every direction, sometimes interpersonal conflicts flare, sometimes communication breaks down, miscommunication, you find yourselves on different pages, and people problems. Oftentimes the worst of them, they drain your energy. But there are high stakes at play, and there is barely any room for error, right? You need to be strong in your decision making and analytical skills, and you're expected to lead. Sometimes you have a team under you, sometimes you are a technical leader, a functional leader. You're expected to speak up and stay composed, and that's exactly when it's the hardest, when you have all these things going on and pulling you into different directions. So most high performers, however, um, they don't really think about what's actually happening beneath the surface. They, especially in high stakes environments, and you might recognize yourselves here like law, have been trained to just work harder, optimize your time, and power through discomfort. Right? It starts in law school. You just have to squeeze in so much content and so many things you have to go through. And it works until it doesn't, until everything breaks down. And what we've seen over and over is that when burnout is being experienced by folks, it's not just about hours or workload. It's actually about the cost of carrying this invisible stress with no release valve, because you need to function, right? You need to function in your job. You don't want to go home and talk to your family or partner or friends about this yet again. And oftentimes people just don't have this release valve. So the hardest part, and often they don't recognize it themselves, it's unconscious. The hardest part is the beliefs that sound reasonable to you that actually keep you stuck. So we want to go through a few of them with you and kind of demystify them and challenge them as well. The first one being, if I just had a lighter workload, I'd finally feel less overwhelmed. So we are curious, by a show of virtual Zoom hands or a thumbs up, any of you let us know if you have thought this before. Boy, if my work volume was just lesser, I'd feel much better and I'd get a lot more done. I'm sure some of you have experienced this before, and it comes with overwhelm. And it's not just about what's on your calendar, right? It's about what's unresolved actually in your nervous system. And one of the key ingredients to building calm, because that's what you need in these moments, is increasing your capacity to handle this overwhelm that comes with a big workload. And what does that really mean? It really means increasing your tolerance for chaos, essentially. And what drains and stresses us out, well, it's possible not to let it consume our mental real estate space the way it currently does, using science and ancient philosophy backed tools, and we'll go over this. And there will always be chaos, but you just get stronger and you have tools and protocols in your back pocket to know how to handle this better. So the second outdated belief that we have is, I'm handling it. Things are fine. Sure, it's stressful, but just part of my job. I'm an attorney or I work in the legal field. And here again, I'm sure some of you have experienced this. Feel free to drop a thumbs up in the chat box or a hands up here in Zoom. But coping is not the same as leading and shining, right? If you are always in this survival mode, bracing for things, avoiding, or just pushing through, that is not sustainable leadership. And what I talked about earlier is that society, and particularly in the field of law, as you go through law school, that's when it starts, they've created this concept around having a push through, really militaristic, tough approach, right? But ultimately, it's scientifically flawed because pushing through lowers your energy level, it drains you, And some people, sure, they have a higher resistance than others, but ultimately it drains everyone. And it happens at the mental and physical level, and it lowers your overall resilience, and eventually you're breaking down. The last outdated belief is if I can think it through, as long as my productivity systems are good, I'm good on time management, everything will fall into place and I'll stay in control. But, systems and time management are the hallmark of being efficient and effective. And that's great if you have that in place, because some people don't, but I hope you do, because it's part of the solution to decreasing your stress and staying calm among some chaos that you might have and pressure. But this system of productivity and time management can really only go hand in hand with the capacity building that we will be talking about and that I mentioned earlier. Because after a while, you realize you can't solely rely on your software, perhaps your productivity softwares, your systems. You can't automate or structure your thoughts and emotions. That stress remains because that fear and that anxiety, you carry that through, and that is what will derail you if it's not properly managed. So you need both. You need productivity and systems, and you need that increased capacity. So the bottom line is, inner control is a key word here, and that's a must-have skill. And like I said, it really affects every part of your life. So one of the key pieces here, and very important for especially high performers and people in jobs with high stakes, is attention, memory, and learning. Plato said, and a lot of our programs are based on Stoicism and also some Greek philosophy. All learning has an emotional base. So if you want to be a better learner, if you want to be better at increasing your attention span, at increasing your memory, you need to know how to manage your stress and anxiety. Because if you have this mental fog going on, you can't, internalize. And if you're fearful of something, if you have some panic or anxiety about something, the source of that fear will occupy a lot, or if not most of your thoughts. So your anxiety narrows your focus. Your brain responds by secreting cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and that prevents your prefrontal cortex in your brain from thinking and from processing new information. So you might have experienced this before. You have something going on in your head. You're really anxious about an upcoming meeting or a presentation, and somebody talks to you about some new case or new information, and you just can't seem to be listening. It's just not happening. You might just catch 20% of what they said because unconsciously there is something else going on in your brain. Another important piece that is being affected if you don't manage stress is decision making. And our emotions have a huge, mostly unconscious influence over our minds, especially in this area. So there are two modes of thinking, the slow and the fast thinking. And the fast thinking is that pre-programmed automatic stuff that happens, right? No room for deliberate and rational thinking. It's susceptible to our moods and unconscious biases. So our thoughts and emotions, however, if they're unchecked, they make our thinking fall into this category of thinking. So again, maybe you have a tight deadline, you have a meeting coming up, you're really stressed out, you're going to rush and make these automatic decisions about things that are not necessarily the best ones. The slow thinking piece is deliberate and informed. So that's the opposite being true here. Thoughts and emotions, they help us create some distance between the event and our response to the event. So when we make the decisions, we want to be here, we want to be focused. And slow thinking helps you weigh all the information instead of just quickly jumping to conclusions or rushing. So being deliberate and calm in your approach, even though you have tight deadlines coming up or competing demands, is very important. 3 and 4 being relationships and creativity. Relationships, keyword emotional contagion here. Your mood at any given moment is really expressed in signals that you send out with your facial and micro expressions. And there's a concept known as mood contagion, which shows that your mood is influenced by the mood of others. And if you lead people, if you present, to an audience, you must mind your moods because they will trickle down to your teammates, they trickle down to your audience. They might not even notice them, but unconsciously our eyes perceive them, our brains register those micro expressions. So as someone who leads, as someone who speaks, as someone who presents, those are key, are your emotions. And you need to know how to work with other lawyers, right? With other paralegals, with other individuals, with clients, with your supervisors. So it's definitely important to have that inner control because it affects relationships. And finally, creativity. And some people think, well, I'm in the legal field, I'm a lawyer. Do I really need to be creative here? Yes, we all need to be creative. And rational thoughts never drive people's creativity the way emotions do. So being able to think outside of the box, right? Maybe when you approach a new case, when you have a difficult client, having these unique angles to problems is very important. You want to have that ability to problem solve. You want to have that ability to use your intuition and have all those roots to be creative. Legal analysis, for example, is a creative process. But if you're in that heightened sense of stress, of chaos, you can't calm down. That anxiety and overwhelm will take over. So Carlos is gonna talk a little bit about other areas that are affected. Oops.
Thank you, Stephanie. So just briefly, I want to talk about two concepts. So what happens if you lack this sense of inner control? It's a breeding ground for two important concepts that you may relate to. The first is something called FOPO. FOPO is an acronym for fear of people's opinions. Okay, it's the fear of being judged by other people. And as a result of this fear, we modify our decisions and we modify our actions, therefore, right? It shows up in things like pursuing status and power versus purpose and meaning, or people pleasing, for example, not setting proper boundaries, fear of being disliked, even playing it safe, right? Versus taking those risks because we fear being judged. What happens if we fail in public? We don't want that to happen, so we become risk averse, right? So what's the link here? What's the connection? Well, if you're not regulating yourself internally, right? You're not properly regulating your stress levels, your anxiety levels, your thoughts, your emotions, your nervous system, you're essentially giving space to FOPO, to start scanning for safety externally because you're not doing it internally. You start thinking about how you're being perceived by other people. You start worrying about the opinions of other people, and that increases mental noise, that takes up more real estate space, and so on and so forth. And the second concept is something called imposter syndrome, which you may have heard of. It lowers your inner control, right? It's something. I want to know if you've heard of it first. By show of virtual hands, just give me a thumbs up if you've heard of it, okay? Or a high five, whatever you want to do. So it's this feeling that we're not good enough, that we don't belong here, that we're a poser, and it's only a matter of time that we're going to be found out, okay? And imposter syndrome doesn't really discriminate. It affects everyone, whether you have experience or you don't have experience. It doesn't discriminate on rank or tenure. Okay, it affects everyone. So what does this have to do with building that inner sense of inner control? Well, when you're not, again, effectively managing your stress and anxiety, those thoughts of being an imposter, they start to flare up even more in the moments that actually matter, in the moments where you're not internally regulating yourself, your thoughts, your emotion, your nervous system. So the loop is you enter moments and periods of visibility where eyeballs are on you suddenly, or you're being evaluated in your job. Then your nervous system starts to spike. And without those regulation tools, your brain starts to scramble for explanations of what's going on. And that's when those thoughts start coming in. Maybe it's because I'm not actually good enough, right? Those imposter syndrome thoughts. And then that state of internal chaos becomes a false signal, essentially, that you interpret as fact, as truth. Okay, you start saying things like, oh, if I were any good, I'd be calm by now. Okay, things like that. And then that belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, a self-fulfilling loop. You over-prepare, you start to overcompensate, you start becoming risk averse, you're playing small, which then prevents you from gathering more evidence of your competence, which then reinforces that imposter syndrome, because staying in your comfort zone means you're not really challenging yourself, and hence you're not challenging those thoughts of being an imposter in the first place. Okay, so these are just some types we want to types of things we want to avoid, the negative domino effects, okay? And just to note here that it's important to note that there are three pieces to this puzzle of achieving this heightened sense of inner control, okay? The first one is what we've been talking about, what we're going to cover today is increasing your capacity for stress, okay? Your tolerance for stress, aka becoming more resilient, okay? Two is also having those right productivity systems in place, okay, to be able to automate, to be able to delegate, prioritize. And three, having the right kind of communication tools to set those boundaries, okay, to effectively navigate around different personalities. All three are necessary, but for purposes of time, we're just focusing on the first one, which is capacity, okay? And we're gonna talk about how to help you build that next. So Stephanie, I think I will continue here. So when we're talking about capacity, right? It's just not mental capacity, but something we call emotional range, which is nervous system flexibility, the ability to stay grounded when pressure spikes, so you can make that bigger impact in your role and show up and shine. Okay, put forth your best selves when it counts. Okay, something you can train. And one of the fundamental ways we do that at TPL, True Progress Lab, is learning how to use specific techniques or protocols before, during, and or after stress hits or spikes, which is what we're going to do next. So these protocols are meant to build calm so you can essentially think clearly, act and communicate more effectively, and ultimately win more cases, right? Gain that client trust, be that stronger lawyer, because that's what we want at the end of the day, right? And just a side note here, at the end of this workshop, you can get these protocols that we're going to cover and a free guide that we're giving away at the end of this workshop, okay? So starting with the first protocol. The first protocol is called Vantage Point, okay? These are one of my all-time favorite protocols. I use it all the time. This protocol helps you break free from that catastrophic, pessimistic, negative thinking by systematically helping you to evaluate different possible outcomes, okay? Worst case scenario, best case scenario, most likely scenarios before you start to formulate an action plan, before you actually start taking action, making decisions and starting and taking action, okay? It's grounded in something called cognitive reappraisal, okay, which is a well-researched psychological strategy for regulating your emotions by helping you to reframe interpretations of situations that happen to us, okay? And it also draws from Stoic philosophy, from Stoicism, okay? Particularly the practice of premeditation of evils, or if you want to get fancy in Latin, premeditatio malorum, okay? It helps you prepare the mind to face difficulties. So why is this relevant? Why is this essential? Because it's the uncertainty that fuels our anxiety, okay? The brain, in its attempt to protect us, it often exaggerates threats or thoughts, making them seem more bad or more disastrous than they actually are. So this protocol, what it does, it helps us break that cycle by thinking more critically about reality, okay, and channeling our energy in the right direction instead of the wrong direction. Okay. And so when do we want to use this protocol, Vantage Point? Well, it's useful in before you're about to go open the doors, right? Before an event, you can use it, right? If you're preparing for an oral argument or a closing, okay, a difficult conversation with a client or your boss, you can use this protocol before you're about to walk into that event, okay? Or maybe you just had a distressing experience. You could use it right after a distressing experience, okay? When you're reflecting on the situation that felt overwhelming and you're spiraling, okay? This is a good moment to use that. During moments of self-doubt or uncertainty, okay? When your inner dialogue, again, is spiraling. And so I want to hear from you just very quickly. if there's a specific use case, you could see yourself using this protocol. Like, just a thumbs up. Would you see yourself using this protocol? I'm curious. Mhm. Okay. So, how to use this protocol, Stephanie? I'm going to keep going here. So, how do we use this? Some steps. So, you want to first identify the activating event. Okay. You want to define the situation causing the stress. Is it something coming up, like we were just talking about, or is it something that already happened that you're ruminating on? Okay. So, for example, you have an upcoming hearing, you're representing a client, and opposing counsel is aggressive, and maybe your client's family is there, okay, and they're feeling very anxious and watching your every move, okay? So after step one, you want to capture worst case thoughts. Worst case thoughts. So you want to write down the absolute worst case outcomes your brain is generating, okay? So this is the Stoic doctrine of premeditating evils, right? You're contemplating worst case scenarios, and by doing that, you're creating distance. You're creating distance between what you're thinking, okay, and what's happening. So, for example, you might say things like, okay, you're going to fumble your argument, the judge is going to reprimand you, or the client is going to be mad at you, you're going to lose the case, or opposing counsel is going to humiliate you in front of everybody, okay? And then step three is generating best case thoughts. Best case thoughts. You want to now flip the script and imagine the most unrealistic, overly optimistic outcome, okay? And the purpose of doing this is because it balances your perspective and helps jolt you out of that pessimistic, counterproductive thinking, okay? And reminds you that there are extreme possibilities on both sides, okay? There's worst case and there's best case, okay? So you might think things like, okay, the judge is impressed by your gravitas and your clarity, okay, and you win the case on the spot. Or maybe opposing counsel fumbles and you secure a dismissal if you're representing a defense client, if you're a defense attorney, for example, okay. Or the client thanks you and tells you they've restored faith in the system, okay. And now step four is about identifying the most likely outcomes, So based on logic, based on your experience, on past interactions, what's realistically most probable in this situation, okay? And you can consider here how the situation will likely play out, both in the short and the long term, okay? So for example, a realistic outcome might be things like, the judge is going to hear both sides and make a nuanced decision based on the facts, okay? Or you're going to present your argument competently. You're not going to fumble. It might not be flawless, but it's going to be professional, okay? And then the final step, once you've gained some perspective, you looked at the worst case, best case, most likely outcome. Now you have some perspective. Now you're a little bit more objective. Now you can actually start to formulate an action plan. Now focusing on things you can control, like your preparation, your words, your approach, and not focusing on external things, like maybe your boss's mood, the judge's mood, other people's opinions, things outside your control, okay? Those are externals. And that is vantage point. That is vantage point. So now Stephanie is going to cover the next protocol, which is called irrational optimism. Over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Carlos. So rational optimism might be a misleading name. It's not about being overly optimistic, but what it really is regaining control over the thoughts that hold you back. Carlos talked a little bit about that negative spiral, worst case scenario, where sometimes our brains go. But when we are faced with challenges, whether it's high stakes presentation, difficult conversation, demanding client meeting, your mind may instinctively generate negative thoughts. Oh, I'm going to embarrass myself. I haven't prepared well enough. The deal is going to fall through. I'm not cut out for this. So all sorts of negative thinking. And left unchecked, these thoughts can also trigger physiological stress responses and reactions. We may all have experienced increased heart rate, sweaty palms, mental fog, and often what this leads to is avoidance, hesitation, lesser performance, not coming across as the strong performer or the person we want to be. And rational optimism is just a really nice and structured process for examining your own thoughts with reason, not emotion. It's about stepping into the role of almost like a neutral observer or detective, if you will, analyzing the situation as objectively as possible and finding alternative perspectives that really empower you instead of just paralyzing you and making you hesitate. And it is backed by research, and this is also a very well-known tool in psychology. There is the father of positive psychology, Martin Seligman, and his team, who really have brought forward a lot of points that we will cover today in this protocol. When can you use it or should you use it? It could be before an important event, when this hesitation and self-doubt starts to creep in. Oh boy, I'm not going to be great here. There are certain people in the meeting that are intimidating or that know a lot more than me or that are going to fight me. A conflict might arise during the meeting if you feel emotionally hijacked in real time. So really just when your thoughts start to spiral, when you struggle to think clearly. Could also be right after an event. If you ruminate over what went wrong, if you spend way too much time thinking about things that you might not, that you might be disappointed about. And it's just really important to cover those three and then to go over them as you experience these events. So there's a big piece to this protocol that we call recognizing the loop, because every emotional reaction starts with an activating event. And here we give an example of you argued a motion to suppress evidence and the judge ruled against you. So this event triggers then an automatic thought. I'm just not persuasive enough. I looked weak, right? And the thought is then followed by an emotional state, which might be insecurity, embarrassment, shame, humiliation, leading then to a certain action and to a consequence. It definitely influences your actions, which could be you might avoid taking the lead on future motions, you let others argue when possible, you step back, and again, you are not that high performer or that person that you can be and that you want to be, because you want to shine and you want to do your best. So what is very important here to do is, first of all, when you go through something like this, these emotions, ask yourself, what is the trigger? What really was the activating event? And when we say this, when these negative emotions arise, is because you might say, well, obviously, I mean, there is this important call that I have, or this client that I'm meeting, but sometimes that it's not really what we think it is. So really try to figure out, what is it that activated your negative emotions? Are you reacting to something that happened in the past? It could be today, this morning, a couple of days ago, or to something that is upcoming. And what specific situation are you struggling with? So in our example, the adverse ruling during a hearing might be something where your client had high expectations, and that's something that you are reacting to. It's important then to name the thoughts. And once you've identified that event, naming the thoughts is really pinpointing them, running through your mind. It might be, again, I lost credibility with the court, I'm humiliated, it didn't go well. Note that these are cognitive distortions, however. You might be catastrophizing, exaggerating, mind reading, this black and white thinking and dramatizing it, because your brain, again, is activating is running or jumping to conclusions. But ask yourself, is it really accurate? That's where the disputation techniques come in. And I mentioned earlier, you have to be as objective as possible in this protocol, almost like a detective, and analyze your own thoughts. So here is where the protocols and principles from two important psychologists come in, Dr. Albert Ellis and Dr. Martin Seligman. They encourage you to challenge your thoughts in 4 different ways. The first one being, dispute your thoughts with evidence. Ask yourself, what proof do I have that these negative, exaggerated, dramatic thoughts are 100% true? Look for counter evidence. Did anyone actually say that you failed? Were there positive moments in your performance, in your speech, in your presentation, in your conversation? Did someone even perhaps offer praise or constructive feedback that you already forgot about? So really try to, going back to our example, perhaps thinking, did the judge say something really negative about my argument? Or was there positive feedback, such as it was well presented, but he disagreed or she disagreed on legal grounds? So it could be nuanced, and we have to really be objective here. The second way to dispute it is finding an alternative explanation. Here, it's important to really look at, okay, is there another way to interpret the situation? Rarely is one single factor to blame. Really identify what's changeable and what's not. So is there another way to view this? Is there another perspective? Is there another paradigm that you can look at? Third one being disputed with implications. Even if your thoughts were true, whatever you think in the first place, what is the real consequence? What are those implications? Are you going to lose your job? Are you going to lose your case or your client? Because often the worst case scenario that you play out in your mind is not as catastrophic as you can imagine. And then the fourth one being dispute your thoughts with utility. Do your thoughts serve you right now? And do they serve an actual purpose? Or are you holding on to something that is not helping you right now, or even hurting you and preventing you from thinking clearly and from moving on with your day? Because if the thought is not serving you, you need to let it go. You need to parking lot it. You need to come back to it later to be productive and go on through your day. Because sometimes it prevents us from being productive throughout the day and from advancing. So you've probably met that person in your life who keeps telling you, you need to let go of it, just move on already, and they're right. And they've mastered perhaps the technique. And they say there is no point in fussing over it. And that's the fourth step of this technique that they really recommend going through of this protocol. And Carlos is going to walk you through our third one, which is protocol 3, deliberate breathing.
Thank you, Stephanie. So deliberate breathing is breath work. And breath work, as you may know, has numerous benefits across various aspects of your health and your well-being, specifically with stress reduction. Okay, consistent practice of breath work, just doing it 5 minutes a day, it can really help to lower your stress levels. Okay, and it's been linked to improving your mood, improving your learning, improving your memory capacity. Okay, and it can also improve your reaction times, your agility in thinking on your feet. Okay, so we're gonna discuss. We're gonna try to get to 3 deliberate breathing protocols. We have 3, and let's get through the first one. The first one is called box breathing. Okay, box breathing is a controlled breathing technique, and it's specifically designed to regulate your nervous system and increase your mental clarity under stress. Okay, it's used by Navy SEALs, it's used by bomb technicians, it's used in sports, it's used in clinical settings. It helps maintain your composure in high stakes situations by engaging your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest response. Okay, so talking about when to use this. When can you use box breathing? You can use it before a high pressure event. Okay, if you're anticipating stress before that difficult conversation, the presentation, that court appearance, that talk with your boss. During moments of overwhelm. Okay, if you find yourself feeling anxious or scatterbrained or emotionally charged, box breathing can help you get that immediate anchor, okay, for calm. Or after a stressful event, okay, box breathing can help you reset your nervous system, okay? So it'll help you. What that means is it's essentially preventing that lingering stress from accumulating. And then before sleep, if you're having racing thoughts that are keeping you awake, you can use box breathing as well. Okay, so it's a very easy protocol to use, and you do it in the following way. You're gonna breathe in for the count of 4, then you're gonna hold your breath for the count of 4, You're going to breathe out for the count of 4, hold for the count of 4, and then repeat that. Repeat that 3 to 5 times. And when you're breathing in, you want to inhale through your nose. And when you exhale, you want to exhale through your mouth. Okay, that's box breathing. The next protocol is called the physiological sigh. Okay, the physiological sigh, this is more of a rapid evidence-based technique that instantly, right, you heard that right, instantly shifts your nervous system from a state of heightened stress and agitation into calm, more increased calm control. Okay, unlike meditation or other breathwork techniques that take minutes to start producing an effect, the physiological sigh actually works within seconds by directly regulating your carbon dioxide levels in the bloodstream. Okay, and this technique is hardwired into human and animal physiology, which means you're already doing it unconsciously, especially when you're crying or when you're sleeping or after a period of exertion, okay? But using it deliberately actually gives you this tool, a powerful tool to break out of that stress cycle and regain composure, okay? And Dr. Andrew Huberman, who you may have heard of, his lab published a clinical trial showing that cyclic physiological sighs, if you practice it for 5 minutes every day, it reduces your stress, okay? It increases your calm, improves your sleep, lowers your heart rate, okay? So let's talk about when to use it. When can you use a physiological sigh? You can use it, again, before a high stakes situation, if your heart is racing before an important event, in moments of acute stress or panic, when you're feeling overwhelmed or flustered or anxious, the physiological sigh can break the stress loops within seconds, okay? After a triggering event, if there was an argument or some bad news you received or a mistake that leaves you somewhat rattled, the physiological sigh breathing technique can help you calm your body, calm your mind, okay? You can also use it before sleep, okay? If you're having those racing thoughts. So how do you use this protocol? You want to first take a deep inhale through the nose, okay? Using your nose, you want to inhale and fill your lungs to about 70 to 80%, not 100%, 70 to 80% full. And then you want to take a second sharper inhale, again through the nose, and this time you want to fill your lungs to 100%, okay? Fill your lungs to 100% in that second sharper inhale. And then you want to exhale slowly through your mouth. Completely and slowly through your mouth. You want to empty your lungs fully. And this exhale should be longer than the inhales to maximize those that CO2 release. And you want to do this 1 to 3 times, okay? And you should start feeling that immediate relief. You don't need to do more unless you still feel tense, okay? We have a video on how to do these breathing protocols and that guide that we're giving away for free at the end of this workshop. It tells you how to do these breathing techniques. Okay, and then I think we have time for the last one. What do you think, Stephanie? Do we have time for the inhale bias breathing? Yes, okay, inhale bias breathing. So this is a breathing technique that actually does the opposite. It increases your alertness and energy levels by leveraging the connection between your breath and your heart rate. Okay, so when you're inhaling, your heart rate slightly increases. When you exhale, your heart rate slightly is decreasing. This process is known as something called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. It's controlled by the vagus nerve, and it plays a super important role in balancing your nervous system, okay? And with this breathing technique, you're emphasizing longer, stronger inhales relative to your exhales. And what you're doing is you're deliberately increasing your physiological readiness, which makes this technique a good way to get focused, to gain that increased confidence and energy levels when it's go time, okay? Also used in sports performance, it's used in the military, clinical settings. And when do you want to use this, okay? You want to use this, well, before you're going into a high pressure situation, okay? Whether maybe it's a job interview, somewhere where eyeballs are on you and you have to speak up, maybe it's at a meeting, or at a hearing or a court appearance. Um, if you want to combat sluggishness or hesitation, okay, you're feeling low energy, or you're procrastinating maybe, or you're struggling with indecision, this technique will help you, give you that physiological boost, okay? When you're shifting, you want to shift from being relaxed to being focused, okay? If you've been resting or meditating, or you just woke up, or you're zoning out, but you need to quickly switch into that go mode, use this breathing technique, okay? And so in terms of how to use it, you want to take a deep, forceful inhale through the nose, and you want to focus on fully expanding your belly and your rib cage. And then you want to exhale passively and quickly through the nose or the mouth again, okay? Don't force it, just let the air fall out naturally. And you want to make your inhale longer and more intense than your exhale, okay? You want to aim for a ratio of about 1.5 to 1, which is inhaling for about 3 to 4 seconds and then exhaling for about 2 seconds, okay? And then repeat 3 to 5 times. There's a similar breathing technique called the Wim Hof breathing technique by a guy named Wim Hof. You may have heard of him. He uses this breathing technique. They call him the Iceman because he does marathons barefoot on ice, and he uses this breathing techniques to do very crazy things. Very effective. Okay, and now Stephanie is going to cover the last protocol 4, somatic body scan. Stephanie?
Thanks, Carlos. So now that you know how to walk on ice, and you can sign up for that next ice marathon, I'm going to walk you through the somatic body scan. And some of you who practice meditation or yoga might have done this already in the past. And all our tools, or most of them, are you can carry them with you. You know, you can practice them anywhere, in your car, on your way to work, perhaps if you find a quiet moment somewhere before an important meeting, in your office. So the somatic body scan can be done really from anywhere too. Well, maybe not while you're driving because you can't close your eyes, but it's important that you find out about this one too. So what it does is it builds this awareness of our internal bodily signals, and that's key to enhancing self-awareness, emotional regulation, stress reduction. So really kind of listening in as to what's going on in your body. It senses just as when your stomach growls, you're hungry, when your eyes burn or you're yawning, you're tired. Well, what else does your body tell you? And it's really important to kind of listen to it. And many of us, including myself, forget about it or ignore it, and they don't really tune in anymore into their internal state. But these signals are the foundation of effective self-regulation, because that your body really sends you data, and it's important to identify that. So when you use it, again, before, after, or during an important event, and it could also be used as a daily reset to build resilience or to find calm. If you have trouble falling asleep, if you had a difficult situation, or if something has bothered you during the day. So how do you do it step by step? Important to find a quiet place, really quiet space. You can sit down. If you're home, you might want to lie down, but it's important to be comfortable. Ideally, your feet flat on the ground, and close your eyes or soften your gaze if you're not comfortable doing that, to turn your attention inward. The second step is the one of the biggest ones and the important ones, is to release tension. So really start scanning your body from top to bottom and releasing the tension in each area. You know, you start on the top with your face and jaw, your neck and shoulders, arms and hands, going down all the way to hips, legs, and feet. And when it comes to somatic awareness, and when we say tension, it can involve a range of sensation in your body. It could be tingling, it could be tightness, muscle tenseness. Sometimes people say they experience heat or cold, pressure or pain. It's not important to judge really whether it's good or bad. It's just about noticing that it's there, that something is there in your body. So then observing and regulating your breathing is key. Carlos walked you through some of the breathing protocols, and noticing our breath without trying to change it again, without judging. Is it shallow? Is it fast? Is it uneven? And try to shift to a deep, low abdominal breathing. Inhale slowly through your nose. Allow your belly to expand. Exhale gently through your mouth. By the way, ideally always breathe through your nose because that improves a lot of things in your body. Keep your breath quiet, steady, and deep, and then focus on that rhythm of your breath as you try to anchor yourself and be more present. The last step is body and breathing together. So really put it all together, do that full body scan with mindful breathing. And with each inhale, scan your body for that residual tension. With the exhale, release that tightness that is in there. So by the end of the scan, your body hopefully will feel lighter, your mind clearer, because you want to get rid of that mental fog, get rid of some of that anxiety and stress that you've been carrying around with, and your breath should feel more natural and steady. It is not only a relaxation exercise, it really is a high performance tool that many high performers use either for emotional regulation or resilience in the executive branches, in the military, by athletes, etc. So that regular practice will definitely heighten your ability to detect early signs of stress because you get more familiar with your body and with the stress signs that it shows you. Okay, so now over to Carlos. He's going to wrap us up for today because we're almost at time. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. So we've gone through the why, and we've challenged some of the old narratives, and you've seen a glimpse of the how with some of the protocols we've shared with you today. And what we found at True Progress Lab is that the problem isn't just pressure, it's what pressure activates inside of us, right? When your nervous system is dysregulated, your headspace gets cluttered, your thoughts start to spiral, your emotions start to flare, and suddenly you're losing that time, you're losing clarity, you're losing composure. And that's why we do what we do, which is first starting with how to regulate your internal state and build that capacity under pressure. I.e. specific tools to manage your thoughts, your emotions, your nervous system in the moment so you don't overreact, you don't shut down, you don't spiral, or waste energy when it matters most, right? Despite the chaos that's surrounding us. And then second, we teach you how to navigate pressure through using the right kind of communication, right? Because even if you can regulate internally, if you can't handle the hard conversations or the hard interactions with other human beings, whether it's with a client or a colleague or even yourself, you're going to be stuck in step one, always regulating yourself, right? And then third, teaching you the right systems, the right delegation systems, the right automations, the right prioritization so that you can further silence that inner chaos, okay? All three go hand in hand. And so with that, to get in touch with us, for today's workshop participants, we're offering free one-on-one clarity calls where we'll sit down with you virtually and help you pinpoint your biggest performance drains and those hidden stressors, and help you map out a custom roadmap to getting that increased calm, that increased boldness, being more effective under pressure, and share some tools that we think could make the fastest impact based on your particular use case, right? Because even though we share many protocols and we have many protocols that we can recommend, it really depends on what the specific individual is going through. And some protocols work better for specific situations or specific people than for others. So that's why we say based on your particular use case. And then to thank you for joining today, we're giving you our free copy of the TPL, our guide, the TPL Stress Recovery Protocol Guide, which has all of the tools that we covered today, and some bonus playbooks. It comes with how-to guides, step-by-step guides. It comes with the videos and some pocket-sized cards for using those protocols that we covered today, so that you can take them with you. And if you want the guide, you can just email us at the email I put out in the chat box there at hello@trueprogresslab.com. And then our contact info, phone, email, website, where you can contact us for any questions you have. I'm also going to put our website here in the chat box. Okay, and you have our website and phone number if you prefer text as well, because that's often we find easier, right? Immediate and easier. Okay, and we want to thank you again for joining us, and Jennifer and her team for making this workshop possibility for you all. So we have about 4 minutes left. We can open it up for any questions that anybody has. They can either unmute themselves or they can just write it in the chat box, and we'll answer your question. Oh, thank you, Kathleen. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll just wait a couple
Everyone.
minutes for some questions. So,
Thank you, Stephanie and Carlos. And we have all of the features open. So yes, people can unmute themselves if they're comfortable, and just join the conversation. The chat is open. We also have the Q&A open. So if people prefer to post an anonymous comment, they're welcome to do that as well.
great. Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, we'll just wait about a minute.
Allow people to type. For those of you that are new to the New York State Bar Association's Attorney Wellbeing Program, this program really highlighted a lot of the work we do. We follow an 8-pillar model, so really looking at the different facets. And a lot of our, excuse me, our intention is to bring all these different voices, different perspectives. Some of it is maybe the same information, but we all connect in a different way. So just really bringing in guests like Carlos and Stephanie through True Progress Labs to bring another perspective.
Thank you, Jennifer.
How do individuals sign up for an individual review that you all mentioned?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. So you can visit our website at trueprogresslab.com/inner fortress, and just visit the website, and it will lead you to the sign up button where you can sign up for a free call.
And then were you willing to share the slides? If so, I can distribute those out to everyone.
Yes, we can share a modified version of the slides, and then for the guide as well, for the guide, which includes the protocols. If anybody would like to have them, they can just email us at the email that we put in the chat box.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Well, that was the one question that's come in so far.
Yeah.
And we did record the program, so if anyone would like to review it, I'll be emailing out the final recording once that's available, with any additional contact. And Carlos and Stephanie will be copied on that email, so you'll be able to directly reply to that and get in touch with them as well.
So an even faster way, including the calendar link, just to make it easier for those who want to sign up for the free call. It's right there in the chat box
Right.
as well. Okay, we'll just wait.
We have 1 more minute to the hour, and I think I have a couple of my we have a few different groups that we run through the Attorney Wellbeing Program, a co-working group. We have a somatic healing group using tapping. We also have a meditation group, and the meditation group runs at 1:30 today. So I'm also gonna just add that. So if anyone wants to take a half-hour break and then come back to an Attorney Wellbeing Program, I've put my email address if you'd like to get on the mailing list for any of our groups I just mentioned, and then the Zoom link to join us at 1:30. It is at 1 o'clock, so any final questions we'll keep an eye out for. But with that, thank you, Stephanie and Carlos, so much for taking the time. Really valuable perspective from you both.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very
Thanks
much,
for having us.
Jennifer. Thanks again, everyone. Take care.
Bye. Take care.
Take care, everyone.
Bye bye.